Yaprağından balı tamar Jantani adam sattırgan köydüydü Yisitsin sözümüzді meyrin kanar Al indi men söyleyin termeden bir Tındasa kelgen halkım o bulup kumar
Wi-Fi. I feel its absence like a festering limb. It's been 10 days. 10 days without coffee, 10 days without clean drinking water, 10 days without a shower. What you're looking at is a port on the far side of the Caspian called Aktau. And I've been here before. A week ago. Gotta love an adventure. That is, unless you climb onto a boat Christmas Eve with no drinking water only to learn that what should have been a day and a half's crossing can take up to a week if you end up waiting for a berth. Unless you happen to get some bad visa advice from a friendly, well-meaning Kazakh consular official. It looks like Stephen Harper did something to piss off Nursultan Nazarbayev, and they took us off the list. They talked me into playing accordion as they processed my deportation papers in a wee compound. You can almost see it actually, just under those yellow cranes. This is where we get to the fun bit. It's New Year's Eve, which is sort of like Soviet Christmas, and when I land back where I started, in Azerbaijan, the customs people don't know what to do with me. I can't get back on the boat, but they can't let me in the country either, so they basically give me a key to a disused border post and tell me to knock myself out. This is still up there as one of the stranger moments in my life. You can see portraits of Hayder and Ilham Aliyev, Azerbaijan's former and current presidents, on the walls, but even more exciting was the closet containing a couple of old military uniforms. What can I say? I was bored. In what I can only describe as a Soviet New Year's miracle, they actually find the official who gave me the bad advice, and he drags himself from his family table just to issue me an emergency visa. He turns out to be a really lovely man, and even tries to give me money in case I need food. Since I can't leave the port, they send one of the customs officials all the way to Baku in a cab to buy me a ticket for the boat. That'll be the third Caspian crossing I've paid for now. And here we are, pulling into Aktau on a rusty bucket called the Hassan Aliyev, older, wiser, and considerably more adept at the cardinal post-Soviet skill, waiting around. This is the first time in more than 10 days I've been able to go where I like, feel the ground beneath my feet. So now the only thing is, it's too cold to walk into town and I have no idea how to hire a cab in this place. So I head for a little cafe next to the port parking lot to take stock and have my first real meal since before Christmas.
It's 2 weeks on boats. Free. Able to roam around in Aktau. Since I was here last, it snowed. I haven't got the faintest idea how I'm going to get to the city. But these are my details.
Turns out how the cabs work here is you stick your hand out on the side of the road and anyone who wants money picks you up. Like a lo-fi version of Uber. All the risks of hitchhiking and none of the savings. English is officially done from here on out as well, and my Russian's not so great.
This town was built in the 1960s. At that time it was called Shevchenko after one of Ukraine's national poets, probably because a lot of the workers who were here were Ukrainian. It's an extremely out-of-the-way part of Kazakhstan with nothing but desert between it and the next largest settlement in the country.
That'd be Aktobe, 1,200 kilometers away, but that's not where I'm going. I'm taking a train via the middle-of-nowhere village of Banya to Kungrad in Uzbekistan. The clock's ticking on my Uzbek visa, too.
Populated by an ethnic group called the Adai, a subset of the Kazakh population. I was warned by a Kazakh truck driver on the Hassan Aliyev to steer clear of those folks because they love to drink and they love to fight.
I'm actually filming right outside my guest house. A guy called Cosmo at the Caspian Hostel told me about it before I left Azerbaijan. Cosmo's in his own league, though, travel-wise. Survived getting spiked with heroin on the Tajik-Afghan border by a frisky freight driver, for example, so I really don't know why I thought his advice would turn out well for me. Anyway, he had this image on his phone, so I took a picture of it on my camera, and that was the only thing I could give my driver to tell him where I was going when I got to Aktau. Hotel Kitimet. The first joint I'd ever heard of that promotes itself by pointing the camera away from the building at a random kiosk across the street.
There's a thick layer of snow. January in Kazakhstan. I don't know what part of me thought this was going to be a good idea, but I'd like to squeeze the life out of that part of me with my bare hands. Aktau is a really, really weird place. It was a real job even just finding internet to let my family and friends know that I was okay. This town has more casinos than it has grocery stores from the looks of it. This was founded in the 60s, this town, as a petroleum and uranium mining outpost, and it still has very much that same feel. The streets have no names, just numbers, and the districts have numbers. So addresses here are just 3 digits. District, building, apartment. Of all the dives I've dove into on this trip so far, and just to remind everyone, that includes the human trafficking hotel in Izmir, for one thing. It also includes, just in the last 6 or 7 days, a decrepit former Soviet ship and a border post with a kind of metal bed a bit like this with some springs for a mattress. This is the sleaziest, crappiest spot yet. Hotel Kitimet in Aktau. There's an odd smell. Somewhat sour. It smells like old soup and cigarettes. The toilet doesn't work, which I suppose shouldn't have surprised me, but I sort of wish I'd tried flushing it before I used it. There's this very picturesque hole in the wall here. Anyway, some of the same people were there when I finally got to the Kazakhstan border. That was satisfying. Got to see Nur Sultan again, the 22-year-old who was reluctantly involved in my deportation about a week ago. The Russian lady, who was one of the ones kind of pushing for my deportation, was the one who stamped me through. Bags not even checked, just whisked right through customs this time. I think everybody was pleased to see that I was alright. I went down to the Shagala Hotel, which is where I would have stayed had I got here in October, where I'm in my booking to get my original Kazakh visa, which is one of the classier places in town, because it was the only place I could find that would give me their Wi-Fi. And that place is empty. At least this place is full of people, and Kazakh people at that. I may have pushed it too far, though, going for the cheapest of the cheap accommodation.
The place with its paper-thin walls, booming with loud, agitated conversations, clambers down to a silence around 11, only to come back to life again around 1 in the morning, just as I'm drifting to sleep. There are bright, young female voices laughing and flirting. I hear them try my door, which thankfully I locked from the inside. A while later you can hear those same bright female voices talking to old, burnt-out, insistent male ones. Cries of pleasure or feigned pleasure further off. Now I know why the place is so cheap. It doubles as a brothel.
But at least I'm free, and I can go where I want, when I want. I'm safe. My loved ones now know that I'm alright, so it could be a hell of a lot worse. And if I can get past the smell, I'll get a good night's sleep and try and figure out what comes next.
I dream of Vancouver, Burnaby, in dead of winter, cold and rainy. But still I thought, I can handle this. Then I dreamed of the jungle, the refugee camp in Calais where I spent a night a couple of months ago. The jungle is one of the most traumatic places I have ever visited. Months later, it has continued to haunt me. No one should be forced to spend a minute longer than they wish there. The fact that thousands remain stranded in those conditions is a dramatic demonstration of Europe's foundering ethical principles in the face of difficult realities. Although I did meet some people from London who actually liked living there. People below the poverty line who found shelter and purpose in volunteering. It's still true what Warsan Shire says. Nobody leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. Nobody wants to sleep surrounded by barbed wire unless their own bed is burning.
Okay, so here's a cool feature for you. The mattress is a piece of plywood. And there's filth. Let me peel some filth off the floor for you. Well, here, have a look. See? This is sort of like when, it's like the stuff when, you're walking on a street and like layers and layers of gum have been left. That being said, I've actually grown kind of fond of this place. I don't know. It's sincere. It means what it says, and it costs what it's worth. At least in the overinflated economy of this place. And it's got nice continuity with the rusty old Hassan Aliyev as well. That's it for me for today. I'm gonna pack my stuff up and go to Uzbekistan. 24-hour train ride should have me in Gungrad.
The main train station is about 10 miles out of town in a place called Mangyshlak. I'm still a bit scared of the taxi system here, and when I finally manage to flag someone, the guy is in no hurry. I still don't have any Russian either, so it's hard to convince him to floor it. We get there, I pay, the guy drives off, I run for the counter, and the train has just left a couple minutes ago. Not another train for 3 days. Everyone can see I'm panicking, so I get approached by another driver. He puts his hands together saying, "Pois," that's Russian for train, makes a gesture very clearly indicating he thinks he can catch the thing in time for the next station. He wants 20,000 tenge, about $80. Seems like a lot, but I don't know how far it is and I'm not in a position to bargain, so off we go. Here I am now in the car with a guy in a Lenin cap who has no front teeth and a shiny set of gold replacements in recompense. Smiles at you and there's a glint. Despite our rush, he's still picking up hitchhikers to make the extra dime. It's not all bad, though. Lots of tombs, maybe a few are Sufi shrines. The driver puts his hands up as if wafting something around the sides of his head and then makes a praying gesture in front of himself. We're in Asia, all right. These are the folks that took northern India and called it Mughal, before the British came to tear it all down. I see my first Bactrian camels as well. What a sight. The car careens through the steppe. In the cities he weaves in and out of traffic, zips past trucks, close calls with oncoming SUVs. The roads aren't great and we thump over potholes and drifts of snow. And all I can think about is, what would happen if I was 200 kilometers out in the middle of nowhere and missed the train? Would this guy take me back? What would he want in return for doing so? There's a very real chance if I play my cards wrong here I could freeze to death. But forget about all of that for a moment. I want you to listen to the singing. I was lucky to be able to record this piece on the train. Normally I wouldn't, but when I played accordion everybody filmed me, so I thought fair's fair. This music is something that goes all the way to the Pacific. In Tibet they call it Geser, in Kyrgyzstan they call it Manas. I'm not sure what the Mongolian version is called. It's a mixture of storytelling, epic, poetry, medicine, ritual. The music's being played on an instrument called the dombra, a sort of a Kazakh lute. The Azeris have something similar to the dombra called the tar. They love it so much they put it on one of their banknotes. Very similar songs to this one in Tibet are part of a canon of poems about a divine shaman king. A canon that is believed to be almost infinite. Sometimes people discover new verses and visions, and yet it's all believed to be part of the same great work of literature, existing in its full form out there somewhere beyond mortal reach. Finally, we crest a hill, and there is the train, like in some kind of old western. We're flying towards some sort of middle-of-nowhere station, at which point the driver looks at me like, how about that? And then he makes it known he'd like another 5,000 tenge for his trouble. I get onto the train utterly exhausted and have to agonizingly schlep all my baggage to the very, very back part. I'm really, really glad I went all that way though, because it turns out the train separates and only the very back carriages go to Uzbekistan. This is Central Asia. Bactrians, Sufi shrines, the rugged steppe landscape, panic, insecurity, and an unfathomable beauty. And of course, a happy ending just in the nick of time.
Жылатып әке шешесін түбінде жеткен ұл жаман Қорлайтын ата енесін келіндер болса бұл жаман Барыңды алып қолыңнан кететін арам қу жаман Арамдық сақтап ішінде ақталып айтқан ақ жаман Үйіңде жүріп еркелеп өзіңді қапқан ит жаман Көрілдеп келген жаудан да күлімдеп келген жау жаман Жолыңды құртып кесетін, тиетін тілмен көз жаман Бірлігін үйдің бұзатын қадалған қампу сөз жаман Ешкімге сырын білдірмей сыртыңнан қазған ор жаман Көзіңе ешбір көрсетпей ойда жоқ құрған тор жаман Әкесі шеше сорлаған балалық өткен шақ жаман Тұрақты болып қонбаған басыңа келген бақ жаман Қызығын көре алмаған қайырсыз кеткен мал жаман Байлыққа мәз боп тасынып ісініп жүрген паң жаман Адамды делқу қылатын шын шайтан кірген түс жаман Әруақ ұрып жығатын тосыннан келген күш жаман Жүргенің болып өнімсіз азабын тартқан жол жаман Егерде болсаң қадірсіз бәрінен бұрын сол жаман Жүргенің болып өнімсіз азабын тартқан жол жаман
It'll be hours and hours before I fully relax from the fear of being left behind on the wrong train with no one to ask for directions. But eventually I do drift off to sleep, hoping to dream of the great old city-states Uzbekistan holds in store.